Hey everybody, it's Tomasino here, and I'm back to talk about Gemini again, the Gemini protocol. When I created the "What is Gemini" video, was it months ago or a year ago? Things were still in flux a bit with some parts of the protocol. We've come a long way. It's not quite set in stone yet, but the progress happening on the protocol side of things is moving right along. There's actually a GitLab page where the specific kind of detail work is being worked out now, and it's pretty great. You can contribute in that, and you know open up issue logs, have conversations about it, and it's getting really close. I expect we're going to see some progress there pretty soon. And with that, we're moving into the next phase for Gemini. Is it IETF RFC time, perhaps? But basically, we're getting to a stable version, and there's really not a lot that's left to iron out. I'm happy to say that the alt text recommendation that I had made in the last video did make its way into the spec. It's not as required as I would like, but everything is moving in the right direction. Well, what I wanted to do today is talk about a question that I saw coming up in the YouTube comments on my last video, as well as on the fediverse. And it's something that comes up with people that, hear about Gemini a lot, which is why? Why would I use this thing? And there are some legitimate reasons. There's some reasons why you might not want to do it as well. And that's what this video is going to be about. I want to talk a little bit about both. We know what it is, but why? Why would I use it? And so I'm going to dive right in. If you haven't seen my previous video, I will put a link to it in the notes below on YouTube. I might also share this video on PeerTube as well. Unfortunately, the last couple PeerTube servers that I've used have gone under, so I'm having a little trouble finding a stable version there. But I'll definitely have this on YouTube at the bare minimum. And I guess let's just dive in. So some of the first questions I see a lot, or comments I see a lot about Gemini, and we see that on that previous video is, this thing's really cool, but it doesn't have feature X, and that's a deal breaker. Inline images, the ability to have tabular data, whatever it might be. There's a line, and people are like, that's the one thing that would make Gemini great. And it's interesting because, when Gemini was first kind of creeping out of Gopher and those first flog posts from Solderpunk came about, and he was talking about it, there was a real question about where that line in the sand would be. But I think what everybody understood from the get-go was you had to draw one, right? Without a line in the sand, you're just making the web again, and you're right back where we started. So, why not X feature? Because the line was drawn there. Would it break everything if we had, tabular data that had a way to be shown as an item type, or a line type? Probably not. Would inline images break things? Well, that maybe. And we'll talk a little bit about that below. The other big question that comes up is, it's not different enough. It's basically Gopher, but with TLS. And in some cases, yes. But there's also a little bit more to it than that. And I think the number one thing that has come up from people, whether it's in a comment or in passing, is where the bar is set. People talk about it, even on that previous YouTube video page. There was somebody that commented, without X, Gemini is never going to be huge. It's never going to have this mass appeal. And to that, I say, okay, right? the definition of success for Gemini is not to combat the web. It is not to take over as the dominant hypertext protocol on the internet. It is to create something of value that people can use and hopefully grow a bit. But that's it, and right now, I think if we were to do the whole spider of the Gemini ecosystem again and what that looks like. Oh my goodness, my computer locked. I have to keep moving the mouse. We did this almost a year ago, and at that time it had grown to be more than half the size of what Gopher Space has become. And Gopher has been growing lately, but Gemini's growth rate has been really quick. So, where is it? Where's that line where it says it's successful or not? I think it's already past it. I think, honestly, people see it, people use it, people are checking it every day, and they're not abandoning it. I do believe we are still very much in that time where we need more content. We need more content that's not about Gemini on Gemini. I've been saying that since day one. It's still true. But, it's still growing. It's still a major topic in Gemini because it hasn't been finished yet. We don't have that stable spec just yet. Perhaps when that happens, we'll see some of that die down a bit. But getting back to the why Gemini, there's really two things that are why Gemini. Two major blocks, right? It's we don't like something about the web, and we don't like something about Gopher. So we're going to be in the middle, right? So let's talk about those. What are the HTML gripes that led to Gemini, and how does it do it different? The number one cannot be overstated is tracking. Gemini was very consciously designed to make it extremely difficult to add tracking, to have your behavior in Gemini space, spied upon, gathered, that data mined and sold. Is it absolutely impossible to get any information from you? No. There's still stuff, right? Your network requests are still coming in. IPs can be logged. But the headers, for instance, in an HTTP request are huge, and they have all kinds of stuff. That's all gone. The types of communication you're having with the server are extremely basic. The TLS level helps a bit with hiding that traffic from your ISP as well. So, there's some basic stuff in place to just make it more secure, that your browsing habits are your browsing habits, and that should be the end of it. So done. Big thing. Can you do this on the web? Yes and no. There's certain things you can do to minimize your trackability as a client. There's certainly things you can do on the server side to say, I don't want to know them. But the whole protocol is designed very much and has grown very much from the world of advertising. So it's baked into so much, there's so many design decisions under the hood that are like, yeah, let's spy on you. A big one. The next is the idea of form over function. There is a movement on the web. It's kind of a brutalist design, not in the artistic style of brutalism with concrete, naked, and all of that, but the idea of raw, basic design. That has kind of proliferated in certain communities in the web as a way to combat against this idea of a web page being an app, of it being this crazy, odd interface that could look like anything and have you clicking anywhere, moving around in 3D space, whatever it might be. So, that same reaction is what we see with Gemini as well. Uh, in Gemini, content is king. Um, and to ensure that's the case, we don't have any way to add design. You have basic line types. You can use them. They are structural. They provide some sort of semantic information to the page, whether it's a header, a list, a link. Um, but the actual design, the layout, that is up to the client. And some clients, like Lagrange here on the right, they're beautiful out of the box. Some of them are very plain, especially the command line ones. And then some, like Crystal, give you the ability to do basically whatever you want. You can kind of set the design to your level, and that's great. That's awesome. So we've taken that whole design, that whole form out of the protocol and passed it off to somebody else. And it's no longer a thing of worry. So yeah, that's a big HTML gripe for people in the modern web, and it's addressed. Um, can you do that on the web without Gemini? Yes, but, and we'll get to that. You might see the quote coming up here a little bit on the left-hand side. All right. Number 3, too much stuff. The web is just full of crap. The majority of the network requests that are going to happen, and this kind of goes into this level 4 here, number 4 as well, multi-transactional network payloads. You load up a web page and you're getting all of these resources downloaded that are not the content. They are the fonts, they are the images and the style sheets, and who knows what else is getting downloaded, shoved into this experience on the web. Because it's an app. The whole thing is basic. Well, not even basic. It is absolutely running code on your computer to make this experience for you. And for a lot of people, that's a thing that is not desired, or not desired all the time. I build that stuff. My day job is building that sort of stuff. And there's certain times that I'm happy to do it. When I'm browsing around, I'm happy to deal with that sort of stuff and see those experiences and kind of enjoy them. But there's other times when I want to look up a recipe and I don't want to go through 25 pop-ups and the backstory about somebody's cat in order to get to the recipe, right? I just want the stuff. I want the content. So, Gemini, it's all there is. And that is most apparent with the idea of a single transaction when you call up a Gemini resource. Now, this is specific to GemText, the one required supported markup type in Gemini. Theoretically, you can have other MIME types, and you could load HTML content in Gemini. But with GemText, the one required that all clients and servers support, a request gets you one resource. This comes back to the whole inline image thing. If I have an image inside a document and my document auto loads that, you're no longer getting a single transaction. You're having one document load multiple things. And that's a slippery slope and a big line in the sand for Gemini. You should expect to get back what you request, and only what you request. That's why even in things like Lagrange, where you can view images inline, you have to expand them. You have to choose to open that image, and it can render it inline in the document, but it's not going to do it automatically for you. That's a strong decision of the protocol, and I support that one. I think it's a major one that people kind of overlook. A lot of the types of why not X feature stuff comes back to that. Why don't we do, whatever it might be? Because you don't want that extra request to happen automatically. You don't want to have it chain stuff, right? That is also a major way we prevent tracking. If you could have an image auto load, well, that's how basic pixel tracking works on the web. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to have a client auto loading an image and now, because basically you've just reintroduced tracking. But a lot of these gripes we talk about, people will say, yeah, but why don't you just use a subset of HTML? Why don't go crazy with your CSS? Don't use JavaScript. Don't do X, Y, and Z. And this quote directly from the Gemini FAQ kind of sums up the why. It says, the problem is that deciding upon a strictly limited subset of HTTP and HTML, slapping a label on it and calling it a day would do almost nothing to create a clearly demarcated space where people can go to consume only that kind of content in only that kind of way. It's impossible to know in advance whether what's on the other side of an HTTPS URL will be within that subset or without it or outside it. And that's exactly true, right? If we in the Tildeverse were like, hey, we're going to do only this brutalist web design, we're going to do only these minimal pages in the style of what Gemini is, right? Any link that you follow could take you, boom, right into allrecipes.com. And now you're back into that crazy world. Or any individual page within that community could suddenly have tracking involved. You don't have a way to know, right? In Gemini, you do. It is going to work like Gemini works, and that's it. So that's the why from the website. Now, for the people that say, yeah, but Gemini is basically just Gopher, but, with TLS. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are the Gopher gripes? Where, coming from the other side, what makes this actually different? And I think the big one right out of the gate is Gopher maps. If you have been authoring content in Gopher, you are probably aware that Gopher maps kind of suck. I mean, even the authors of Gopher, when they talk about it in interviews, you can hear them talk about the craziness of the fact that it is a tab delimited file, but it also has that first column, which is a fixed character, right? So it's like multi-formatted structural data. And yeah, it's kind of difficult to write in. It's very easy to screw up. And then, of course, there's a plethora of servers that try to make it easier for you, but moving between them can complicate things. So basically, it's a difficult markup format to work in. And that's a Gopher map. Now, if you're like me and in Gopher, you author all of your content in Gopher maps, that means you're dealing with that nonstop, and you probably wrote yourself a wrapper to deal with it. Some people only use it for menus, and then they put their content into plain text. In Gemini, we have GemText, which is close to Markdown, but even easier. It's parsable from the top to the bottom. You only need to store state on one thing, which is this a pre-formatted text area or not? And it by its nature, because of that, the whole top-down parsing and the way the protocol works, you can stream GemText content, and it's so easy to author, to transmit, to read. Even if you didn't have a beautiful rendering engine like Lagrange, just seeing the raw content, it looks just as good. And some of our text clients do that. They're just like, here's the GemText, and you're done. So what else? Hard wrapping lines. Now, Gopher predates the use of mobile devices. In Gopher days, we had to worry about terminals. The spec is very nice. It tells you to try to keep your line width under 70 characters so that you avoid issues with hard wrapping or text that might run off the screen. And that was great. They were thinking about the future, but they were thinking about their future, and they didn't envision this mobile world where, well, maybe you're going to have 40 characters width or 35 character width. And if you've tried to read Gopher content on your phone, it's difficult. Some people have authored clients that try to automatically reflow the text, but it's just not designed for that. And you can never know for sure whether it's going to work or it's going to just butcher what you're looking at. So that's a problem. Gemini does away with that problem. Your lines are variable width. That's why you author all of your text on one line with soft line breaks if you need to in your editor, and it'll reflow for the content or for the screen for the device. And therefore, Gemini is very usable on mobile devices. Somebody commented on the first YouTube video about that, and absolutely, it is absolutely usable on mobile. There's several Android clients. I believe there's several iOS clients. In fact, Lagrange is in testing for iOS right now. And I've seen some videos of it. I don't have an iPhone, but I've seen some videos, and it looks really good. So yeah, it's first class support for that sort of thing. Unicode support. It doesn't come up a lot unless you are one of those Gopher people that wants to write in another language. It's just not there. Some clients try to assume it and you work around it, but ultimately, Unicode support should just be built in. Gemtext does not force require UTF-8, and it probably should have, but it certainly it is Unicode enabled. You can set the character encoding, and it will actually do it. Insecure. Gopher is an open protocol. It's plain text transferred over TCP. So there's nothing to it, right? It's just broad, open, everybody can see whatever, which is good and bad. For some people, they want that measure of security that their ISP is not spying on what they're doing. They want to know that, I can fetch this resource, read it, and not have to worry about somebody filtering, looking for that information. And, maybe you're living in an area where that sort of thing is really important to you. Yeah, cool. It does create a downside in that Gemini is not necessarily the best choice for really old hardware, which can't do TLS, which we'll talk a little bit about in the why not Gemini section coming later. MIME types of binary files. Gopher barely knew what it was doing with binary files. It's just like one blob format, and you get what you get, and hopefully you could figure out what to do with it. Usually save, and then open it later. Virtual host. Gopher doesn't have any way to actually do virtual hosts, and it's not Gopher's fault per se, but there's in the request that you get, you connect to the server and you pass it a path. But nowhere in that handshake do you tell the server what name you think the server has, because the server should know its own name, right? Or at least that was the case in the early 90s. That's kind of a miss these days where we have virtual hosting, and you can get around it ish with IPv6 or whatnot, but ultimately no. Virtual host and Gopher is not really a thing, and on Gemini it is. It's no big deal. And redirects. If a resource is outdated, Gopher doesn't have a good way to redirect you to the proper resource. There is the mirror item type, the plus, but even that, very few Gopher clients support it, and those that do don't know how to support it the right way. So yeah, these things all solved in Gemini. It's a lot more than just TLS. I mean, TLS is this one item here. I think the most important one, though, is probably this first one, the markup format. Going from Gopher maps to Gemtext is huge. Absolutely. So, that's why not the web, why Gemini over the web, why Gemini over Gopher. Again, Gemini is not trying to take over the internet. It's giving you an alternative, right? It doesn't need to be the biggest thing in the world, but these are legitimate use cases now. So, before we move on to why not Gemini, let's also talk about some of the new stuff Gemini is not just about answering gripes from the other two protocols. It has some new stuff going for it. The number one, in my opinion, is that because it's so simple, it's really easy to write new clients and new servers. The web, if it is broken, part of its brokenness is that we have effectively one rendering engine out there. Two rendering engines? We have two rendering engines out there. It is not feasible for somebody to write a modern web browser and do what a Chrome or a Firefox is doing from scratch. There's just too much crud. And so our choices have gotten thinner and thinner. And now even Internet Explorer is using WebKit. Yeah, I wouldn't, or Edge. Yeah, it's not great. But on Gemini, we have a wealth of clients and servers to choose from. If you don't like Lagrange, you can use Amphora, you can use Crystal, you can use Bombadillo. There's a bunch of them. And if you don't like any of them, it's not that hard to make your own. So yeah, that's really, really cool. And it helps support the simplicity of the protocol, and it avoids us getting into a situation where Chrome is, where it can kind of steer the internet by adding a feature, right? If Chrome starts doing it, well, now everybody kind of has to, because that's your choice. If Lagrange decides to implement something, that doesn't change Gemini. Lagrange has done it, but it's not like a Gemini-wide thing. We didn't automatically change the spec because a client chose to. That's really nice. And the other thing is client certificates. We talked a little bit about this in the last video with, what was it? Astrobotany. But people are coming up with all kinds of ways to use these. The idea that you can have user creation on the fly by just creating a client cert, and you can come back and be the same user that you were last time, or you can create client certs that are destroyed on the fly. You can do a lot with that. I didn't put it in here, but the whole streaming thing is also really cool and kind of new. Yes, you can do streaming on the web, but HTTP doesn't stream. It's other stuff in the web that streams. Here, Gemini just you don't terminate the connection, and it can keep sending data, and you can do stuff with that. We don't have a wealth of clients that are implementing the rendering in a streaming way yet, but there's still more talk of that, and I hope to see more of that coming, because it is kind of built right in, and it's something that people can take advantage of. And I think we will see more of it when people have good ideas and implement them, and other people are going to be like, oh, wow, okay, that's really cool. Kind of like Astrobotany. Once that popped up, it was just like, oh, client certificates, those are cool, and I can use them. Ken Sonata, that's Alex Schroeder. He has built a mud, basically. Well, a mush. Yeah, and you can go into his Transjovian. Was it under? I think it's under Trans. No, it's under a different name. You can go into his thing like you would on a old fashioned, telnet mush sort of thing, and create a new room, decorate it, expand the universe. Other people can go around and explore, and you can interact, and it's really cool. And that's all done thanks to client certificates on the fly. So really cool stuff that's unique to Gemini as well. So I hope that kind of simplifies the question, or answers the question. Why Gemini? Why not X? But it doesn't have X. It doesn't have Y. Why not Y? All of that stuff. It kind of, it fits in the middle, but in a way that is unique. And it also brings some new ideas. Now, before we're done, let's talk about why you might not want to use Gemini. It is not everything to everybody, right? I mentioned this before. It's not trying to take over the world, so it's not going to do everything that you need to do online. Um, I mentioned because of TLS, it is not the right fit for a lot of retro computing. I know some people have gotten it working with Plan 9, which is really cool, but you're not going to see a Gemini client on your NES. Sorry. I mean, it's just, I don't believe we have TLS for that. If I say this out loud, someone's going to do it and prove me wrong. You know what? I'll say it. You're never going to see Gemini on an NES. Somebody please do it and prove me wrong. It doesn't have caching. That's a problem for some people. If you're serving primarily plain text, though, not such a big deal. There's no compression. This is an odd one because, technically speaking, even if you think about it as, with the ability to stream, GZIP can stream. So it would have been really easy to put compression on there, but we didn't. Keeps it simple, right? It simplifies the creation of a server and a client. So it's not there. These things might make it not okay for you. Ultra low bandwidth people out there that are, I don't know, you're doing like LoRa stuff and you're getting 300 baud speeds. Maybe you stick with Gemini or with Gopher rather. I don't know. You could try it. Now we run into this occasionally. There is no method for resuming an interrupted download. So I'll say it's not the best choice for large files, but that doesn't mean you can't do them. If you have a relatively stable connection or a fast connection, downloading, let's say, Conpeto. I don't know how to say that out loud. Conpeto.media. This is Cat's work here. His mixtapes that he does. These are MP3s, and that's not a big deal. Even the zip, if you're on a decently fast connection. So large is a relative term. It is, if that's going to be a problem for you and the fact that there's no resuming is not going to work, keep that in mind. It might not be the right thing for you. Maybe you don't use it. And probably the one that worries me the most about why Gemini might not be the thing is this idea. Let's rewind a bit. Gemini is a protocol. Once it is baked, once they finish the spec and it's formalized, will not have a version number. It's going to be the Gemini spec and end of story. There will never be a Gemini 2.0. That is one of the initial design decisions because they don't want to add stuff. It is done. It's over, baked, etc. Right? And this is supposed to ensure that we don't have a scope creep. We don't start introducing new stuff that ends up with us making the web again. The unfortunate part is when people started asking questions about Gemini, a lot of the people that got into it really early have this fantastic mentality. It's the hacker mentality of, I could probably make that work. And then they do. The problem when you take that mentality into the Gemini world is we're making decisions to not do things, not because we can't do them, but because we don't want to do them. We want to draw that line in the sand. So some people have seen Gemini as a challenge. They say, hey, if we don't have these features, how do I do X? How do I create a wiki? Right? And so instead of adding features into Gemini itself, we've created a bit of a protocol fragmentation where people have made companion protocols that bolt on to Gemini. And now you can do X, which is basically a scope creep in all but name. So a big one that's getting some movement behind it now is Titan. um, which is an upload protocol that works basically just like Gemini in reverse, and allows for uploads. And I mentioned the wiki thing. That's kind of where it started. It's a really neat technical solution, and Lagrange has implemented it. So we have it in built into one of the major clients. Is that a good decision, though? I don't know. Um, you know, for me personally, I want to see us stay a little more in that mentality of like, let's keep the line in the sand and not go there. But it's a losing battle, right? Because all it takes is somebody to be creative and to hack together something that works, and then other people are going to be like, "Oh, that's really cool," and want to use it. So, does that mean Gemini's whole mentality, their whole philosophy is doomed from the outset? Maybe, maybe, and maybe that's a reason why it's not gonna work long term. It could be. Um, but that's a reality. So I don't want to come across as this diehard evangelist for Gemini with my eyes closed. There are some real problems with the idea of not implementing stuff. Right? How do you not implement stuff? It's tricky. So I'll try to continue to be the voice, uh, you know, the old man waving my fist from my lawn saying, "Don't do it, people." And we'll see if it works or not. So yeah, protocol fragmentation, adding stuff is an issue, and then there's also some questions about things like the Mercury protocol and the Spartan protocol, which were some musings that Soderpunk had way early on, where he's like, maybe I went too far, and maybe I should have done something without TLS and without all of these jump text line types, and um, basically put it out into the universe that what if Gemini existed, but what if there was a simpler version that was closer to Gopher, and we called that Mercury. And then some people took that and were like, what if we went even farther back and we called it Spartan? And it just leads into the same thing. It's protocol fragmentation, right? So where do you spend your effort to build up and invest time in? Um, I think Gemini is the right spot because it makes some good decisions to answer a bunch of real gripes, and it does have a critical mass. We've got a lot of content coming. That's great. Um, I hope people continue to spend their effort creating content for it and growing the protocol's content side of things, and we don't see so much of this fragmentation. I think that'll help it long term, and I'm hopeful. But I'm also a little realistic. Will it stay? Will it be that, or will we get a few killer clients that start picking up? Oh no, that start picking up these new features, or these new companion protocols and bundling them in, and then suddenly Gemini is like Gemini Plus, Gemini Plus Titan, Gemini Plus whatever. I think what's another one? GemPub, which is kind of an extension of GemText, where you can have a bundle of GemText documents plus some metadata, and you've made an ebook. Instead of the EPUB format, which EPUB is basically just a bunch of HTML with metadata, it's the same thing but in Gemini. So a companion protocol, does it need to exist? Not really, but is it a danger to Gemini? Not really. But some will be. Some absolutely will be. So anyway, that's my stance on why Gemini, and I hope it answered it for you. If you still have questions and that didn't answer them, it might not be for you. That's fine. It doesn't have to be, right? It's for some people, and that's cool. All right. Do give me your thoughts. Send some comments here. Find me on the Tildeverse. We're on IRC. I like to chat about this. I'd like to know, is there some other reason why you use Gemini that I didn't mention? Yeah, add context, spread it around, share with people. It'll be great. All right. I'll see you in, what is Gemini space? Is that what we're calling it now? Gem space? Somewhere.